Welcome back to another one of my videos. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a Donauwelle or a Snow White cake. Now this cake is basically like a marble cake with cherries, and then it has a layer of German buttercream and chocolate on top. Now for the dough, you're going to need 250 grams of softened butter, 175 grams of sugar with a good pinch of salt, 1 package of vanilla sugar or just a good splash of vanilla extract, 5 room temperature eggs, 375 grams of flour, 3 teaspoons of baking powder, 20 grams of cocoa powder, 50 to 100 milliliters of milk, and 1 glass of sour pitted cherries. Now, as always, we're going to start by just creaming together our butter, sugar, salt, and vanilla until super creamy before we add in our eggs one at a time. Now I just sieved in the baking powder and the flour and added the milk. So at this point we can give this one quick mix just until combined. We're going to spread half of our batter into our pre-lined baking tray, and then into the other half we're going to add our cocoa powder. Now the last thing we're going to do is evenly spread our drained cherries all over our dough, and then we're going to gently press them in as well. Now our cake can wander into the oven that's been preheated to 180 degrees Celsius or 360 degrees Fahrenheit for around 25 to 30 minutes. Now for the filling, we're going to use a German buttercream. So for that, you're going to need 250 grams of softened butter and 1 vanilla pudding that I've already cooked according to instructions using 200 milliliters of heavy whipping cream and 300 milliliters of milk instead of just the 500 milliliters of milk. If you want to see step by step on how I make my German buttercream, you can watch my video up there. But essentially all we're doing from this point is creaming our butter until it's super light and fluffy, and in the meantime we're going to sieve our pudding. Now you can definitely skip the sieving part, but I find it helps to get any lumps or clumps that are in the pudding out, and that's just going to help our buttercream be a lot more smooth and not so grainy. Now that our butter is super light and fluffy, we're going to add little dollops of our pudding at a time and mix that in until we have no more pudding. Now that our cake is completely cooled off, we can evenly spread our buttercream all over it. We're going to let this chill for about half an hour just to make sure that our buttercream gets nice and solid, and that way it's just going to make smoothing out our chocolate on top a lot easier. Now for the chocolate topping, you're going to need 200 grams of chocolate chips and about 2 teaspoons of coconut oil. Now we're simply going to heat this over a water bath on medium-low heat until everything is completely melted. Now that our chocolate is all melted, we want to make sure to let this cool down until it's just lukewarm. You don't want this to be too hot because else it can melt your top buttercream layer, and it's going to make it a lot harder to get a nice smooth wave pattern into it. Now essentially all we're going to do is pour our melted chocolate all over a cake and get a nice smooth layer. And then we're going to use a cake scraper with kind of like a zigzag pattern to get our wave. Now if you don't have a cake scraper like this, you can always just use a fork to get the same design. It's just going to take a little bit longer. Now because our cake is cold, our chocolate is also going to set rather quickly. So to make sure that you get a nice smooth wave, I also recommend heating up your cake scraper under some hot water, and that's just going to help keep your chocolate a lot softer. We're going to let this set completely before we use a hot knife to remove it from the tin. And there's our Donauwelle, or our Snow White cake. So that's going to be everything for today's video. If you enjoyed it, you can give it a thumbs up or write me a comment down below. And as always, the whole recipe is going to be in the description box as well.